Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Life is rough in the Star Wars galaxy. People are always fighting about something. You got the light side versus the dark side, democracy versus tyranny, and of course sand versus everyone else. Fuck sand. The thing is though, these are just inconsequential conflicts that you can easily avoid by just not getting involved.
Could use a good pilot like you. You're turning your back on them. What good's the reward if you ain't around to use it?
Han Solo understood this until he didn't, and then he ended up with an absent wife and an emo kid who ultimately stabs him through the chest with a lightsaber. Luke Skywalker was also sucked into the same trap of caring too much and winds up penniless, living as a hermit in the middle of nowhere. The reality is that the Republic, the Empire, the New Republic, and everything that came before it and after it are all relatively the same. These various governments were all just massive bureaucratic entities that were designed to really just do one thing: promote economic growth and protect the financial interests of the largest conglomerates in the galaxy, who essentially control everything. The moisture farmers of Tatooine, the scrappers on Jakku, and the factory workers on Corellia, individuals without capital, will remain forgotten by the galactic elite. No matter who controls the galaxy, the individuals at the bottom are going to be forgotten and crushed. We're not sure exactly when the Republic or Empire or the galaxy as a whole began its slide towards hopelessness and financial imbalance, but we can probably trace the roots of all these issues to the Old Republic period, when the Galactic Republic abandoned the Erodium standard that the currency was based on and partnered with major banks like the IGBC to back the newly created Galactic Credit. The idea here was to raise more capital so the government could invest in more services and infrastructure. When you have your currency backed by a precious metal, it is extremely limited. You can see more short-term fluctuations in economic trends. This means larger swings in commodity prices and larger, more frequent recessions. When money is backed by a large banking institution or governments instead of precious metal, it's known as fiat money. This means the currency has no actual worth aside from what the institutions appoint it. Now, at first glance, this imaginary money seems like a stupid idea when compared to money that's physically backed by precious metals. But when something isn't backed by a physical thing, we can enter the realm of speculation and financial engineering. A currency's worth can be backed by a country's stability and its future prospects. This gives governments a lot more leverage when it comes to capital and allows them to borrow a lot more money. Those who control the banks and the currency control the entire galaxy, because if you're in bad standing with them, you might not get the loan you wanted, or they might assess your assets in a much less favorable way, decreasing your purchasing power. The value of money becomes a lot more fluid, and suddenly random individuals have a lot more control over everyone else's money, and they can do this by printing more credits or decirculating credits. But whether you're Finis Valorum or Chancellor Palpatine or even Chancellor Mon Mothma, the idea has always been the same. Borrow and spend money that you don't have right now, and hopefully in the future your investments will pay off and your population will rise so that they can cover all the debt you just took out. The problem is, if the spending is poorly planned or destroyed, as in the case of the Death Star, then all of a sudden you have a massive amount of debt and nothing to show for it. Even worse, if you have a shrinking population, now you're just not going to raise enough money through taxes to actually pay off those debts. It's at this point you realize that the galactic economy is basically a Ponzi scheme. Early adopters get all the benefits and rewards from the spending, whereas late adopters still have to pay into the system, but they get diminishing returns. So how does one get ahead in the galaxy where your hard-earned credits are constantly being devalued by the printing of more credits by the banking system and galactic governments? Well, I recommend you place your money in the one place that grows alongside consumer prices and service prices, and that is the Intergalactic Stock Exchange. Stock exchanges are technically where people raise money and move around capital, but nowadays it's just all gambling. But it's still the one place where a private citizen can latch onto the success of corporations who have massive amounts of capital, the only thing of value in this galactic society. And that's because if you have capital, you can leverage that capital, borrow more capital, and use that money to squeeze out competitors and basically monopolize your profession, which seems to happen in Star Wars in every industry almost. Some of those corporate powers are so massive and large that they are considered essential infrastructure for the galaxy, and therefore in times of economic crisis, the government will do everything in its power to keep these types of companies. These companies are too large to fail, and I highly recommend you invest in them. And I'll also explain to you guys some other interesting financial products and companies you can put your hard-earned credits into. Quad Drive Yards has a lot of things going on for it. First, it's not just a starship manufacturer. The company technically runs the entire planet of Quat, located in the core, and also owns a massive orbital shipyards, one of the largest in the galaxy. Furthermore, this planet and corporation has been ruled by the same few families for multiple generations, and they seem to have done a good job and placed the corporation before anything else. Throughout the years, KDY has built many different subsidiaries and supply chains and relevant industries. They even created Rothana Heavy Engineering for taking on more secretive contracts like the ones they received for outfitting the clone army with tanks and gunships. And while many corporations like the Trade Federation and Techno Union decided to play both sides of the Clone Wars, KDY was smart enough to play only one side, the Galactic Republics, the eventual victors of the conflict. The Trade Federation and Techno Union were more or less dissolved with the end of the war. Meanwhile, KDY would become the official starship manufacturer for the Imperial fleet. It did enjoy the help of taxpayer subsidies, which greatly increased the company's ship-producing capabilities. Now, even in a worst-case scenario, if the New Republic manages to defeat the Empire, Quad Drive Yards is still going to be perfectly fine. It's highly unlikely that even the rebels will damage or destroy KDY. The facilities on this planet are priceless, and their preservation will be very important. When Bact was invented, it changed the medical world. This thick fluid made from bacteria and exotic barley was a one-size-fits-all solution for almost every type of medical ailment in the galaxy. Now, Bact was invented by the Blasttech insect race. Their homeworld of Thyferia in the Inner Rim was the sole place in the galaxy where this miracle fluid could be created. Two companies known as Zoltan Corp and Zufra Corp control the entire Bacta market. Some might call them the Bacta cartel behind their backs. They are essentially a duopoly, and they frequently price-fixed their products and grossly inflated the cost of this essential fluid. Kind of like what corporations do with insulin here on our planet. Well, these two Bacta companies certainly are immoral for doing this. Their collaboration with the Empire, their control and dominance of the Bacta market, along with their frequent payout to shareholders through dividends, means that this is a stock you really can't ignore. Unless you really are ethically, repulsed by this company, which I do understand. Now, Blasttech Industries was originally a subsidiary of Bactoid Armor Workshop, which I know is a company that probably worries a lot of you guys out there. Bactoid Armor Workshop supplied the Separatist Alliance with many of their vehicles and armor during the Clone Wars and were essentially blacklisted and destroyed after the war as a result. But Blasttech Industries was actually smart enough to lead the Techno Union before the war even started, and would remain the main supplier of small arms to the Grand Army of the Republic, and with the rise of the Galactic Empire, they would also supply the Stormtrooper Corps. I mean, even when the First Order Resistance War came out, Blasttech was somehow able to skirt around the Galactic Concordance Treaty, which banned arms manufacturers from selling weapons to the Imperial Remnant. They were still somehow able to get their products through to the First Order. Now, we've only mentioned Blasttech state contracts. Their pistol and blasters were also widely used by the civilian populace, and their control of a large share of the arms manufacturing industry also meant that the Alliance to restore the Republic and even the Separatist droid army would have to use some of their products. Also, famous individuals like Han Solo visibly rocked Blasttech favorites like the DL-44, which definitely improves the brand's recognition.
Yes, I bet you have.
Not only does Blasttech have a monopoly over the small arms industry, they have a monopoly over an industry in which if you sell more products, it'll just create more demand for that same product. This is a very profitable business model. Damask Holdings is probably the most important company that you've never heard of, and as of now, I don't think it's being publicly traded, but that might change in the near future. What does Damask Holdings do? Well, it's a financial group that holds a massive amount of wealth through generations of smart investments. More importantly, this organization was used by Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious to manipulate and bend the political world towards their desires. You see, Damask Holdings was a lobby and political pressure group that was involved in almost every level of government. They were the ones who founded the Clone Army. They were the ones who helped Palpatine get into power. But now with Plagueis and Sidious expired, who runs Damask Holdings? Well, most likely a Mune like San Hill, or someone along those lines. A boring bureaucrat. And now that the Sith are removed from the operation, the more rational Mune will most likely just run this company like any other financial portfolio. I estimate they'll have to raise a little bit of capital after a few decades of decline and stagnation. And so this might lead to an initial public offering, something I would definitely jump on. The Sith might be gone and no longer backing this product, but the Mune still control the money, and through the money they control the galaxy. So there you have it, guys. Those are 4 financial products that I recommend you guys check out. Obviously, I'm not a fiduciary, so this advice to you guys is probably illegal in the Star Wars galaxy somehow. But since we're here, I might as well just explain to you the point of this video. It's really to explain to you guys that the galactic economy is relatively rigged against the average salary and wage earner. If you don't place your money in the market, then you won't benefit from the massive expansion of the economy, which honestly in the last 20, 30 years has only really benefited the people at the top and not necessarily the people in the middle, and definitely not the people at the bottom. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.